Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to my record-setting 26th, I think, webinar here for Viva Learning entitled Zirconia, the Lithium Disilicate, and Everything in Between. Do you really know how to handle these materials? So many of you who have been on here before and heard me speak know a little bit that I work with many manufacturers. As a matter of fact, Monday night, I have another webinar that you can come on Crown and Bridge. But tonight's webinar is sponsored by GC America. I want to thank them for sponsoring the program, and I hope you enjoy the content that we're going to share with you tonight. I am one of the speakers from Catapult Education, a group of 25 key opinion leaders that speak, lecture around the world. If you ever hear a chance of anyone speaking or seeing a webinar or a lecture of theirs, run and go, because there's a wealth of information there. These are some of the manufacturers we work with, including GC America. We consult with them. We work with them on an ongoing basis to develop education and materials. And again, as I told you tonight, I want to thank GC for sponsoring this program. If you're on Instagram, I would encourage you to friend me at Vino Dentino. It's there where I talk about dentistry and fine wine, my two passions, and I'd love to have more friends. So Vino Dentino on Instagram, come say hi, and let's get on with the program. So I think today, as we look at our laboratory materials, our focus and shift has gone away from true metal-based materials to materials such as zirconia and lithium disilicate, which I'm not going to use the term EMAX today, but that's what you know lithium disilicate as, and other ceramics as well. We've shifted that focus from metals to these types of materials. Zirconia has been the player, the number one player, the big dog in the ring for many of us as we shifted our materials. And I think that one of the questions I always ask my groups is, do you know what kind of zirconia you're getting? Because zirconia is not zirconia. And what's in your zirconia? What makes your zirconia that you're getting from your laboratory special? We all see advertisements from a laboratory for a zirconia crown for X number of dollars, and we're paying X number of dollars plus that. Well, is there a difference? Well, one of the differences happens to be in the amount of what we call yttria in the zirconia. The yttria is really the key ingredient in zirconia that separates one from the other. And if we look at, and this is an Argent slide, Argent is one of the companies that has zirconia. One of the things I want you to take away is there are so many kinds of zirconias today, and those zirconias not only vary in aesthetics, but also vary in strength. So if you look at this chart, the names aren't as important as the components. We look at Argent Ultra. I can tell you, without even knowing the product, that Argent Ultra is a monolithic zirconia. Why do I know that? Because it's indicated for copings and frameworks up to 14 units, and it's 1,400 megapascals of strength. Again, if we look, it's about 5.5% mole weight of yttria. Argent Aesthetic and Argent High Translucency have 5.5 and 7% almost of yttria, but look what now happens to the strength. The strength goes down from 1,400 megapascals down to about 1,100 megapascals. So we lose about 20% in strength. Still very strong, and what we've gotten is we've gotten a more aesthetic restoration, and yet a restoration that's slightly weaker. And then we go to the anterior zirconias, the ones that really look almost like your lithium disilicates, and we've dropped down almost 50% in strength and higher yttria. So rule of thumb, the higher the yttria, the more aesthetic, the less strong. Still keep in mind that lithium disilicate, when it's bonded, it's about 500 megapascals. So we're still higher than lithium disilicate, but we're playing in the zirconia space. So I ask you, and you can't answer me, but I'll ask you, do you know what kind of zirconia you're getting? Are you happy with the aesthetics? Are you happy with what you're getting from your laboratory? So the question becomes is, do you know? Do you know what you're getting? Because there's so many materials we have today that we can possibly use, and we have to have this basic knowledge of what material to use in what situation. If we look at what I call the Kleenex, the name brands, there's so many of them when it comes to zirconia. Bruxer, probably the household brand, that's the Kleenex. And Bruxer is Jim Glidewell's brilliant name for a zirconia crown. But other companies such as Argan has zirconia, and 3M Lava is zirconia, and Catania has different types of zirconia. Zerlux, all different kinds of zirconia that we can get from our laboratories. What we do know is that the zirconia space is growing. It kind of looks like the stock market over the last 7 years. And we see that the zirconia space is totally growing, which means that even if you say you're not using it as much as you think or you would, you're going to do it because that's where the trend is going. So if you look at Glidewell's numbers, the biggest lab in the country, and we look at total percent of fixed restorations in 2017, well, let's back up. In 2007, here on the right, porcelain to non-precious white noble or yellow noble metal and full cast accounted for about 80% or 82% of the crowns that were done in the laboratory. If we look at 2017, they now account for less than 10% of what was done in the laboratory. But here's where the number gets crazy. If we look to 2007 and we look at the amount of zirconia done in the lab, almost zero. Back to 2009, almost zero. Fast forward 2017, we look at zirconia, 70% of the crowns were zirconia. But now if we keep going down the line and we look at lithium disilicate, that accounts for another 11% or 12% of the space. So we see where this direction is heading when we talk about crown and bridge. Total full contour zirconia, about 70%. Porcelain to zirconia, 5%. Total zirconia base, 76% of crowns at Glidewell were done with zirconia. And of course, PFM down to about 10%. In order to use these types of materials, we really have to understand preparations, because as our materials change, our preparations change as well. So here we're looking at a prep for a full zirconia crown, and there's a couple of things I think that's important. Number one, whether I talk lithium disilicate or I talk zirconia, the strength numbers only come into play is if you have an adequate tooth preparation. If you don't have an adequate tooth preparation, well, it's not going to make a difference. You want 1.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters of occlusal reduction, and you want a solid 1 millimeter axial finish line that you can create an ideal prep for. These are the burrs I use from Microcopy. If you call Microcopy and tell them you heard Kaminer speak, they'll send you a free burr pack. So these are the burrs that I use. I use a football diamond. I use an 016 chamfer in a medium grit, an 016 chamfer in a fine grit to smooth it off. And then I have this cute little burr that has only diamonds right here on the edge, and that will allow me to finish my finish line to create a equigingival finish line whenever possible that's nice and smooth. Notice there's no diamonds here on the shank, only diamonds here at the end. In the anterior, same burrs, just a little bit longer. And again, these are the burrs from Microcopy. Call them up tomorrow, tell them you heard Kaminer in a webinar, and they'll take care of you. Everybody likes to hear Gordon, so I quoted Gordon CRA newsletter, where he says, we're finding the new translucent zirconias require more tooth reduction and much more gentle handling during chairside adjustment. and possibly use some less stressful situations, especially when molar restorations are considered. It's important for clinicians to realize that the new translucents and addition of coloring have decreased zirconia's strength. So I go back and ask you, do you know what kind of zirconia you're getting? If you're getting a translucent zirconia, my laboratory provides me with a multi-layered, multi-strength zirconia. That's a zirconia that's stronger on the outside, a little bit weaker on the inside, but I have gradation of strength and also gradation of aesthetics. You need to know what you're getting from your laboratory. If you're just using monolithic zirconia, I would then tell you that maybe you should look at other options, because there are more aesthetic options that are out there when it comes to zirconia. Well, people say to me, well, zirconia is so strong, it's so hard. How does it wear the adjacent teeth or the opposing teeth? Well, I guess it really depends on what you do with that zirconia. The assumption is zirconia is detrimental to the opposing dentition. The reality is that's really a myth, because Burgess found that zirconia caused less wear to the opposing teeth and the other teeth experienced less surface wear than enamel or veneering porcelain. And the highest ceramic wear was exhibited by the veneering ceramic. For enamel antagonist, polished, and this is important, polished zirconia caused the least wear, and enamel caused moderate wear. Glazed and polished zirconia showed significant opposing enamel wear, and veneering porcelain demonstrated the most. So between reglazing or glazing zirconia and veneering porcelain, that's where you have your highest wear. So you must tell your laboratories, do not glaze my zirconia. Hand finish or hand polish my zirconia. So here's just a rough chart on where to use what zirconia. So posteriorly, this is why it's important to know what you're getting. Monolithic, full-strength zirconia, first and second molars, I think, work great. As we get to the bicuspids, I want something more aesthetic. That's really, for me, I'm going to use what I call an aesthetic zirconia, a multi-layered, multi-strength zirconia. It'll look real good on the outside. It'll be strong on the inside. When we get to the interior, though, now it's a whole different ballgame. I think when we get to the interior, you have to consider either aesthetic zirconia, if they're going to Brux, or a lithium disilicate crown that's going to give you optimal aesthetics. Now let's focus on lithium disilicate. Lithium disilicate. The word that you know is Emax. The word you may not know is a product from GC called Lisi that we're going to talk and show about. I find Lisi to be really, really aesthetic, as you'll see in the cases that I'm going to show you. When would I use lithium disilicate? Inlays and onlays, veneers, minimally invasive crowns, all work well for lithium disilicate. Can you use it in the posterior? Absolutely you can. You can use it for implant superstructures, 3-unit bridges. There's really a lot of options where you can use your lithium disilicate. Again, one huge advantage of lithium disilicate is you can truly bond it into place. You can cement or pseudo bond into place zirconia, but if you have a short preparation, you may want to consider a lithium disilicate crown that you can actually bond into place. You need optimal aesthetics to gain that strength of 500 megapascals, 1.5 millimeter axial reduction, 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeter shoulder or chamfer, ideally a chamfer, and a 2 millimeter or 1.5 to 2 millimeter incisal to axial reduction. Again, you need to give your laboratory room for strength and aesthetics. Don't expect to get an aesthetic crown if you're not going to leave your laboratory the space in order to get there. If you look at this slide, posteriorly, we need space. We need space for material to bond. We need space for the lab to create those aesthetics. So I want to give my lab ideally 2 millimeters, but 1.5 millimeters of reduction would be ideal. Can you do things minimally invasive with lithium disilicate? Can I do a veneer that's 0.3 of a millimeter? I can. Just need a very good laboratory to be able to deliver the aesthetics that you're looking for. The beautiful thing about the GC product, and if you haven't use this. Ask your lab next time for Lisi. If not, find a laboratory that can deliver Lisi to you. My personal opinion, Emax is a great product. Lisi is even more aesthetic than Emax, and a talented lab technician can really deliver highly aesthetic results. Lab tech out on the Pacific Northwest, Bill Murray, can spin magic with Lisi. His crown and bridge is magnificent, is totally magnificent using Lisi product. Down in Texas, Mai Jung Shin, magnificent lab technician using Lisi type products. So what is actually lithium disilicate? Well, it's a crystal. It's a crystal sitting within a glass matrix. That's what gives it that translucency, the aesthetics, the ability for these materials to appear lifelike. So what's unique about GC's lithium disilicate or Lisi technology is that the chemistry is different. The way it sits in that matrix is different than Emax. And that's what makes this material even more aesthetic. So GC's Lisi not only utilizes the crystal phase like in traditional lithium disilicate, but also that whole matrix. So by using that whole matrix, you're getting optimized aesthetics and translucency. The beautiful part of these products is regardless of your shade, regardless of how much or how little translucency, you're able really to get beautiful, beautiful aesthetics. So what you're getting with Lisi is not only the aesthetics, but you're getting a higher strength, a chip resistance, as opposed to traditional lithium disilicate, which is Emax. Again, I'm not knocking the product. It's a great product. It's the leader in the space. But Lisi will give you advantages over Emax. For me, it's a lot about wear resistance. You want to make sure it's kind to the opposing dentition, yet will be a strong product. And if you look at Lisi here compared to Emax, Lisi has less wear, but also is much kinder to the opposing dentition. Those are the kind of things that we're looking for when we're looking for a strong material that will allow us to still deliver those aesthetics. The fluorescence is much higher, and we want fluorescence. Fluorescence is what's going to give it its true aesthetics. So by having a magnificent fluorescence, then we can go ahead and deliver a crown that will be way, way more aesthetic and be lifelike as we place it into the mouth. And again, you see the fluorescence here is really, really incredible. Once again, you're getting this natural opalescence of the product. So again, if you haven't tried Lisi, strongly encourage you to ask your lab technician to try. Notice here the crown and bridge in the anterior. This is what Lisi can deliver. Look at these laterals. Look at the translucency that a good lab can deliver. It's really, really highly aesthetic. But it's not just for crown and bridge. Look at the lifelike restoration here that you see in your inlay. I mean, that first molar is magnificent. You really, cannot differentiate between the tooth structure and the material itself. And this is what we're looking for. The term biomimetic is such that we deliver lifelike aesthetics in our crown and bridge. And we want to do that any opportunity we can. And while zirconia has become really, really, really popular, when we talk about ideal aesthetics, you can get an aesthetic with a translucent zirconia. You can get it aesthetic. It's just not going to deliver these kind of aesthetics you're getting with something like Lisi. So here's one of our patients. Charlie has peg laterals. I wanted to do this in a no prep fashion. And today we're using a lot of digital technology. And I want to take you through the digital workflow so you can see how we got Charlie's final result. We created a minimal type preparation. Charlie's only 16 years old. I don't want to cut down those laterals, yet my laboratory has to deliver something to me that's going to be pretty aesthetic. This is really a neat camera. It's a Shofu camera, the iSpecial C3. By pressing a button, what I can do is I can gray out the soft tissue to give my lab shading. They can go ahead and realize what my stump shade is of my prep and what then I can use to create a shade for that crown. So this camera allows me to deliver an image through a point and shoot without adjusting white balances and so many other things. The camera also allows me to disinfect it by wiping it down, which I really like because most cameras we know we can't wipe down. I can also draw on the back of the screen so I can show my lab tech what I'm looking for when it comes to soft tissue or shading or anything like that. All these things I can do with the iSpecial C3 from Shofu, and I can even write a shade on the shade tab so my laboratory knows what shade I'm looking at. These are all things I can do through my point and shoot camera. So here what we've done is we've taken our digital scan. I know many of you impress. I still impress a lot of things. I'm showing you a digital workflow case. I've taken my Trios digital scan. What's nice about Trios and my iTero is I can see occlusal reduction. This is an occlusogram here on the right. And I can see how much reduction I have. So I know I can deliver optimal reduction to my laboratory so they can deliver for me a really fantastic result. The software mounts our preparations. Here it's a very, very minimal prep. And then here we're going to use Lisi for our final result. Again, the advantages of Lisi: unsurpassed flexural strength, great aesthetics. It's really a strong material and much lower soluble than the other brands that are out there. You have a variety of translucency, so the laboratory can deliver for you, depending on how much translucency you want. The lab can deliver a crown that has a lot of translucency or a little translucency. We get our Lisi, what I call 3/4 inlays or wraparound inlays here. And now we got to go ahead and understand how to treat them. In order to get optimal adhesion, we have to treat our substrates in the right way. Our substrates need to be treated properly. Otherwise, when we cement these, they're not going to really have optimal adhesion or optimal holding. Whenever we're dealing with any kind of a porcelain or ceramic product, we need to use silane to enhance the bond strength. Silane can come as a form of a silane primer or a multi-surface primer like some of the manufacturers have, as well as GC. If we're going to go ahead, not in this case, but if we're going to go ahead and glue or bond in zirconia, well then of course we have to really use a different kind of a primer from most of the manufacturers. We have to use a zirconia primer unless the manufacturer makes a multi-surface primer. Now, Ivoclar's Monobond Plus was the first universal primer that was out there. GC has a multi-surface primer now that we use all the time, and there are a few other manufacturers that have them as well. This is G's multi-purpose primer. Again, the advantage of this is one primer for lithium disilicate as well as zirconia. I don't need two different primers, and this is going to enhance bond strength. This will allow the cement to bond better to the intaglio surface of the material. So we've primed the internal surface of our veneer. Now I have to make sure that my cavity or my crown prep or my veneer prep is totally disinfected or clean. There are a number of products you can use here. This is Bisco's Cavity Cleanser. Bisco's Cavity Cleanser is a 2% chlorhexidine. You can either take a cotton pellet and wipe the prep with a cotton pellet, let it sit on there, slightly air dry. Or what I do is a lot of time I'll saturate a piece of gauze and wrap the preparation in a piece of gauze and have the patient bite on that gauze while I'm preparing my intaglio surface of my restoration. Ultranet makes a product too called Conceptus that works in a similar fashion. So we've primed our intaglio surface. We've cleansed our prep. If you're in enamel only, You want to go ahead and etch for 10 to 15 seconds. If you have dentin and you don't have any enamel, you really don't need to use any phosphoric etch, because all of our multi-surface, our multi adhesives today, our universal adhesives, can work on dentin with strong bond strengths, and we do not need to phosphoric acid etch. And then we're going to follow it with our resin cement. So here is my bonding protocol. In this case, I've gone ahead and I've treated the intaglio surface with my GC multi-primer. I've placed my visco cavity cleanser on a piece of gauze, and I've smothered those veneers with a piece of gauze. And then I'm going to use a kit from GC called Link Force. And Link Force has pretty much everything in your kit that you need to use to cement or bond on these veneers, or any veneers, or an all porcelain crown that you want. Why do I use Link Force? Because it comes in a variety of shades. It has very strong bond strength. There's very low wear if I should have any at the margin, which I'm not going to have. The film thickness is low, yet when I place the veneer on the preparation, in this case, it won't slump or slide. It'll actually sit exactly where I place it. And that's the funny part of some of these cements, in that the runny ones, if you place a veneer on, it's going to slide or move right off. The thick ones, you start pressing really, really hard, and what ends up happening is you expel a lot of the cement out that veneer and have just a thin film thickness. Or in this case, if you have a 3 or 4/10 of a millimeter thick Emax or lithium disilicate type veneer, or a Lisi veneer as we have in this case, you don't want to break that veneer. So if something's really thick and you have a 2/10 of a millimeter veneer, you could break it. So you want to make sure to have a material that kind of works just right, and Link Force really works really, really well like that. And most of the time, if the lab has done a great job, I'm using the translucent shade. The translucent shade really is what I try to use most of the time. I try not to adjust shades, because I really hope by taking enough shades I get a close enough shade from my laboratory. So what you can use Link Force on, all your ceramics, your hybrid ceramics that we'll talk about in a little bit. You can use it for metals and PFM, zirconia, and even you can use it to cement in a fiber post if you want to, or a composite post. So you have many indications to use this type of cement, not just for what I'm going to show you right here. So we've gone through our cementation process. You could see that the two veneers blend seamlessly into the smile. We've gone ahead, we've bonded them in, and people always say to me, hey, you didn't show step-by-step of bonding the veneers. Keep in mind that bonding veneers, whether it's 2, 4, 6, 8, or even 10, might be the most stressful appointment we could have in our practice, because they got to hit perfectly. So I rarely have a step-by-step, but I'm going to talk you through it. This is all an enamel. So once again, I've etched the enamel for 15 seconds. I've rinsed it off. I've gone ahead now and placed silane in my veneer, and I've placed my universal adhesive. Here I've used something called G Premiobond. That's GC's universal adhesive. I'm going to make sure to agitate it into the enamel, or if you have dentin, agitate it into the dentin for 20 seconds. Agitating these materials helps to work the material into the tooth structure. I'm going to air dry that material. When I air dry that material, you're going to see a shiny surface on your preparation. Air dry it, you see the shiny surface, light cure it. If for some reason you have the entire prep is shiny, but one spot isn't, you probably didn't agitate enough material into that spot, and then I would tell you to go ahead and re-agitate more material on there. You want to have your entire preparation smothered and covered in your universal adhesive. By doing that, you're going to be able to bond in a predictable way your restoration to the tooth. So now I've light cured that. I'm going to place a little bit of link force onto the restoration, and I put a dot in the center of the preparation, a tiny dot. Now I create a sandwich technique. And when I do that, I'm going to sit the veneer and try to expel the material gingivally. So I'm going to sit it in an inciso-gingival direction. Now we have all this material on the soft tissue. So what do? I now take a brush, a little paintbrush or a micro brush with some wetting resin, unfilled resin, and I mop up the excess cement on the gingival, in the interproximal, and on the lingual. I mop up that cement so I don't see any excess cement. I'm then going to take my light and I'm going to hit it right up here at the gingival margin for 5 seconds. I want to seal that gingival margin. Once I seal the gingival margin, I'm going to take some floss and gently run it through the interproximals of these 4 teeth to make sure I haven't locked my interproximals in place. Once I've done that, whatever excess comes out, we take a surgical suction and just go ahead and grab that away, and then light cure for 30 seconds on the buccal and 30 seconds on the lingual. 1 minute of total light curing. Why do I need that much? I don't. But this is an important process. And I want to make sure that my restorations are bonded on into place. So this is Jamie. We'll take you once again through a digital workflow. So Jamie has just finished ortho. And if you look at Jamie's ortho, listen, I'm not going to tell you it was the best or worst job, but obviously if we draw a line down the middle of her face, we really bisect. The midline's not exactly on. She's got tiny peg laterals. She's got pointy cuspids, and we barely see her posterior teeth. How the heck are we going to restore Jamie? She's a 16-year-old girl, post-ortho, and she's going to high school. This is a formative years for her, communicating. She needs a smile. Now, just to preface this, Jamie does not come from a super affluent family. Her mother, her father are middle-class working people. But the value for her daughter here is that she needs a smile. She hates the pointy canines. She hates the pegs. And openly, her centrals are way too big. So how do we resolve a case like this? By eye, it's very difficult. Let me show you what we do today. We're going to go ahead and scan her. We're going to send the scan to our dental lab. This is Matt Roberts' lab at CMR Dental Lab. And I say to Matt, I want you to design Jamie's smile. Give me a design so I know what to work from. And by designing this smile, I now begin to learn certain things about her final case. The first thing, let's look here to the right, is I see that I'm going to need to bring these teeth out a little bit. If I have to bring these teeth out a little bit, that tells me I need minimal preparation. I just need diastemas. I need to thin these centrals out. But I don't need a big prep because everything is going to be ahead of our teeth. The next thing I see is I'm going to need to lengthen most of these teeth. The centrals ever so slightly, but I need to lengthen most of them. If I need to lengthen them, that means I need to just round some corners, and I don't need to do an incisal reduction. That continues the design. Here is the potential veneers. And again, you can see that everything, for the most part, is going to be what I call additive. Now comes prep day. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little gingivectomy. How am I going to do this gingivectomy? I'm going to do it with my diode laser. My diode laser we use all the time. Some of you are apprehensive about using a diode in the anterior, but I'm telling you, if you use the diode at low power, you have absolutely no problem with the diode in the anterior. So we've done our gingivectomy, and what Matt's done now is created a wax up from that design. I'll take you back. He's created a wax up from this and a clear suck down. How do I know how much to prep these teeth without over reducing them. Ideally, I wanted to keep this case in enamel and be able to do the case with no local anesthetic. That would be the ideal scenario. She's 16. I don't want to destroy her teeth. Matt makes me a suck down, and the next thing I do is I take that suck down preoperatively, and I take my Bisacryl material. Here it's a great material from GC called Temp Smart. Temp Smart is GC's Bisacryl material. And what I do is I just lay it over the existing teeth. I fill the tray. You take your back one. I take this off. I fill the tray with Temp Smart. I haven't prepped anything yet. And then I'm able to see where I have thin spots. So wherever I have thin spots, here and here and here, I go ahead and prep right through my Temp Smart, acting as my guide for a minimal preparation. I still got to do my diastemas, but I'm using the Temp Smart as a guide not to over prep. This case was done without any local anesthetic. Did not give her an injection, not even for the gingivectomies. Just super topical for the gingivectomy. I had to create my slices. I wanted to slip something through, but this was done without local anesthetic. Look at your occlusal view. We barely reduce these teeth, but what you can see from your mind's eye is you come around in a circle, you can kind of see that if I overlay something in front of these, my lab can deliver something aesthetic. From here, we take our final scan, send it to our laboratory, and then make our provisionals. Before I used Temp Smart just to cut through it. This is my Temp Smart provisional. Is she happy with her provisionals? You bet she is. Much more proportionate teeth, and she's going to be happy with the final result. That this is going to be our guide, and for sure we can deliver at the end. And again, look at the aesthetics here with using Lisi. This is a life-changing case. She's 16 years old. Look at the translucency, look at the contour, the polish, the shine, and this is what we're getting with Lisi from her. She's got, I will call, for lack of a better term, normal size laterals and a super, let me go back one, excuse me, a super aesthetic smile. The key as I look, we want the veneers, the incisal to follow the lower lip. They do that as well. And she's, of course, really happy at 16. So we've covered zirconia. We've covered lithium disilicate. What about this hot topic now, what I call the hybrid ceramics? The hybrid ceramics are some sort of a resin-based material that has ceramic particles inside, or some are more ceramic than resin, but basically it's a hybrid material. It's a blend of ceramic and resin. And there's a number of materials that exist, and there's several more are coming. How it works is you have a ceramic network with a resin-type polymer, and when they're put together, you get this homogeneous hybrid ceramics. Well, why would I want that? Well, I'd like them for inlays, onlays, crowns, and veneers. Can I use lithium disilicate for an inlay? Yeah. When was the last time you tried it in an inlay, had a very tight contact? Try to get out the inlay, and now you chip a margin and you can't get it out. The beautiful thing about hybrid ceramics is you get a drop of flexibility. And when you take out that ceramic after trying it in, when you take it out, it's easy to remove before you finally cement it. They're also really aesthetic. They're less brittle than lithium disilicate. They have great wear resistance to the opposing. You can create a conservative prep, and you can use them for inlays and onlays. There are a lot of players on the market. GC's got one called CeraSmart. CeraSmart is their version of this hybrid ceramic. What's different about CeraSmart is the way the crystals are distributed within the matrix. You know, it gives you high deal strength, but also gives you high, high, high aesthetics. Super strong, but yet also super, super aesthetic. About 29% resin and 71% ceramic within the matrix. But there are some unique features that separate this. So you got to ask your lab to try one. One of it is it retains its gloss over time and is self-polishing. So as your patients brush their teeth, this material will polish or shine even more over time. If you have to adjust it, it's very, very easy to polish. And also, you also have a very high wear resistance as well. So it's really, really strong at the same time. And by doing that, by polishing that and making it look like a tooth, you're going to really have ideal aesthetics. I use it primarily for inlays and onlays. That's my baby. Now, some people will mill it in the office. I have my lab do it. As long as you give your ideal preparation depth, then you're going to be okay. Here's a digital model. A digital model showing you our inlay that we use, SeraSmart. Here's our preparation in the mouth. You can see that I have parallel walls, or I have a nice flare to my wall, so I'm going to have a passive fit. I've created that preparation with these 3 microcopy burrs. The 512, the 11610 fine, and that flat end that gives us that real smooth floor and smooth finish line. We've done that with these 3 burrs. And then here we're going to use GC's Lincase. Lincase is a self-adhesive resin cement. It's what I call squirt and go. You squirt it out of the syringe, and then you're able to go ahead and cement. Keep in mind that self-adhesive resin cements have what I call moderate bonding ability, meaning you'll get moderate strength from the bond, but it's very rare an inlay will fall out anyway. So you're going to get good enough strength. I am still going to use my multi-surface primer on the material to enhance the bond strength. And then I'm going to go ahead, and this is SeraSmart. I'm going to go ahead and place my Lincase cement. You can see the lifelike aesthetics here. I'm going to take my 1509.3 beveling diamond and finish my margins. I do not want a cement margin. I want my margin to be closed. That's really what I'm looking for here. So I want a closed margin. I'm just going to finish off the excess cement to make sure everything is nice and flush. You can see here, the interproximal margin is sealed. You can see here the occlusal margin, totally sealed, but most importantly, the lifelike aesthetics that we're getting from the restoration. So let's now just revisit cementation in general. So we can, in the last few minutes, you get a real good picture of what cementation is all about, because there's so much confusion when it comes to cementation. I'm going to reiterate some of the things, but show you a little bit how to treat these better. We have to treat the substrates. Why do we treat the substrates? Because when we try to crown in, we get salivary impurities that are inside that crown. Salivary impurities will interfere with bond strength and just leave you with a dirty intaglio surface. So we got to go ahead and clean that intaglio surface before we treat that material. Number of ways to do it. Some people say alcohol. Nope. Some say acetone. Nope. Some say etch. You better not do it if it's zirconia. That's not going to do it. But ideally, we want a specific crown cleanser to clean off lithium disilicate and zirconia crowns. The traditional one that many have used is a product from Ivoclar called Ivoclean. Ivoclean is an alkaline suspension of zirconium oxide particles. What you want to do, first of all, is shake the bottle because you'll have settling of the particles at the bottom. So turn over or shake the bottle, dispense some in the crown and scrub it for 20 seconds and rinse off. After you rinse this off, then you're able to place your primer and you're ready now to bond your tooth into place. That can be used, IvoClean can be used both on lithium disilicate as well as zirconia. A more efficient way to deliver this type of a cleanser is Bisco's Zirclean. Zirclean is a little bit of a thicker suspension. It comes out of a syringe, so there's no bottle. And I can use Zirclean on the inside of that crown in the same way, scrub it for 20, 30 seconds, remove the salivary impurities, and because of that, I will improve the adhesion of my cement to the crown and to the tooth. Now we got our primers. I told you about Monobond Plus, it's Ivoclar. More now than before, I'm using GC's multi-primer because it's similar in chemistry, and I like, if I'm going to cement something with a cement, I like to keep things in the same family whenever I can. It likely won't make a difference. It's my pet peeve, but that's what I like to do. Now you have options of cement. You know, if you're going to go ahead and cement zirconia and you have a long prep, an RMGI will work well. Personally, I don't use a lot of RMGIs, but an RMGI will work well. It has decent bond strength. You get fluoride release out of it. You can use it for PFMs as well as zirconia. It's easy to use. The cleanup is easy, but the bond strength of zirconia is only going to be okay. Not bad, not great. If you have a lot of retention and a long prep, as I say, you can cement it with butter, but RMGIs will work well. And again, GC's got, of course, Fuji Plus. And Fuji Plus is a great option to use here to cement these crowns. Now we got our resin self-adhesive cements. Our resin self-adhesive cements, again, we save a lot of time. There's no etching. We have some low bond strength as opposed to a bonded cement, but it's easy to remove the excess and it's a squirt and go material. So squirt and go is hugely advantageous to me in many ways. A lot of places to choose from, a lot of choices. Again, Linkase, ideal option in this space. We have a high, with Linkase, we have a high bond durability to zirconia in one step. We also have excellent color stability, and we have a simple way to remove the cement. Tack your for 1 or 2 seconds, and you can peel the cement off. So again, if you have good retention and good crown height, this cement will work well. Finally, if you want maximum adhesion, you have to bond the crown in, or bond, literally bond it in. That means using GC Premio Bond and what I would call a bonded resin cement, a dual cure resin cement, will give you the optimal adhesion. The nice part about the Link Force kit is everything comes in there. So you can get an entire kit with anything in it, and that's going to give you your optimal adhesion when you're looking. So you have to have this kind of understanding of the materials, because if you understand your materials, then you really know exactly what you're getting in the long run. Knowing what you're getting from your laboratory, knowing what or how to bond these things in is the key to your ideal result. The beautiful thing about GC is that GC will give you a totally complete system, a total system with which to do this. And I'm a big believer of making things simple, of keeping things totally, totally simple. And by having complete kits from one manufacturer, it allows you to have a complete kit to bond these types of materials into place. So with that, I want to thank you tonight for the program. I have a bunch of questions. I want to go ahead and answer the questions. We have some time to answer the questions because this topic can really be complicated. For a case in the posterior that has a non-retentive prep, would it be better to bond lithium disilicate or would it be better to bond zirconia? So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that for a case in the posterior that is non-retentive, your best retention would be G-premium bond and link force, bonding the crown into place, and again, lithium disilicate. Now here's where certain things come into play. Because on a second molar, sometimes you need more strength. And on a second molar, when you need more strength, you may have to sacrifice using a zirconia crown, and your bond strength would be a little bit less because we know these cements bond better to a lithium disilicate type restoration. So again, not to confuse you, Dr. Mobelli, but I want to make it clear. For ideal retention, lithium disilicate, meaning LISI, G-premium bond on the prep, and link force. If you have no high wear, you're still going to bond it in, but you're going to use the multi-surface primer on the zirconia instead of the lithium disilicate and use the same cement. Blackjack asked me, can you polish with prophy paste? You can't polish with prophy paste. The best way I found to polish is Clinician's Choice makes zirconia polishers that are second to none in the industry. Check me out Monday night in my webinar, and you'll see me use them in a video. Pete, thanks for the nice comment. Dr. Mobili says, before the styling of the EMAX, I use a 9% hydrofluoric acid, but I not hear you mention. Would you recommend that? Dr. Mobili, it's a great point. My crowns come hydrofluoric acid etched from my laboratory. If your crowns do not come hydrofluoric acid etched from your laboratory, then you must hydrofluoric acid etch your crowns. You have to have hydrofluoric acid before you're styling. But ideally, it comes from the lab that way. Keep in mind, you do not want a hydrofluoric acid etched zirconia. Your zirconia should come from your laboratory, sandblasted. And that's going to give you really the ideal bond strength to whatever cement you're going to use. Got some great comments here. I want to thank all of you for the great comments. And if there are no more questions, oh, we got one. Can I use Calibra Universal with zirconia after Monobond Plus? As long as you use a universal adhesive, Calibra Universal is a bonded cement. And if that's the cement you use, you totally can use that. Just make sure you use your adhesive. If you're going to use, if you're a Dentsply person, which seems that you might be, if you're going to use Prime and Bond Elect, just make sure, ideally, you light cure that Prime and Bond Elect and make sure it's light cured, or if you're not sure, that Prime and Bond Elect is not a dual cure adhesive, make sure you use the dual cure activator just to be sure your entire adhesive is going to be cured. If I know the difference between Z Prime or Monobond Plus versus GC's primer, I've not seen a difference at all as far as any of the primers. I think, again, if you follow the rules and you do things the right way, the crowns are supposed to stay in. But I've not seen a personal difference using one or the other. So with that, I want to thank all of you for joining tonight. It's about 4 minutes before 8 o'clock. And I thank you again. Come see me Monday night once again.